The mothers of two of the three Palestinian college students who were shot and wounded in Burlington, Vermont, will soon be reunited with their children. 48-year-old Jason Eaton is accused of attempted murder. Police say he approached the three men who were out for a walk on Saturday night and suddenly opened fire. Eaton has pleaded not guilty.
Tamara Tamimi is Kinnan Abdalhamid's mother. She traveled here from Jerusalem, and Elizabeth Price is the mother of Hisham Awartani. She traveled from the U.S., from Ramallah in the West Bank. Both of them are joining us this morning from Dulles Airport. And ladies, first of all, let us just say we're so sorry for what happened to your sons. It's absolutely heartbreaking to know that they were just minding their own business, walking down the street, and what the alleged suspect did to them is just absolutely horrific. Elizabeth, let me begin with you. How is Hisham doing now? Reports are that he was the one that was most seriously hurt.
Yeah, I know he was very seriously injured. He is still in critical condition. He's having an operation today to repair his clavicle. From what we are speculating, the bullet hit the clavicle, which slowed it down, so that when it hit the spinal column, it embedded itself but didn't break it. So ultimately, we're just incredibly grateful that he's alive. We could have lost our child, and I think that's the thing that I think devastates us most every time we stop and think about that. So he should be having an operation today, and he may, in the next week or so, be moved into a rehabilitation facility because he has an incomplete spinal injury, which means that he currently can't move his legs.
And Tamara, Kinnan, he has been discharged. I know one of the sons was an EMT. Is it him? And, you know, can you talk to us a little bit about, can you talk to us a little bit about what he experienced? Because as I understand it, knowing that he's an EMT but wasn't able to intervene and help his friends has really been weighing on him.
Incredibly so. It was the first thing he said. I understand that's what he said to the EMT that picked him up. He said, you know, I'm an EMT and I wasn't able to help my friends. Kinnan was very quick acting, though. His training seemed to have triggered a response, a flee response in him. So as soon as he saw the perpetrator with the pistol, he bolted across the street, jumped over a wall, and hid. But the perpetrator apparently kept shooting at him as he was running because he grazed his right buttock. And it seemed, thank God, did not penetrate too deeply. But yes, he was incredibly saddened and in fact thought that his friends were dead.
But I mean, his instinct is probably what saved his life. Is why he is out today, out of the hospital, that is.
That's right. That's right. He's also a track athlete, so he was quite fast.
Wow.
Elizabeth, can you describe to our audience the bond between these three young men, the bond that they share, their friendship, how long they've known each other? I mean, you know, from what we've been told in the reports that are out, they are quite tight.
They're very tight. They're brothers. Kinnan and Hisham have known each other since they were first born, because Tamara and I have been best friends since before they were born. So we had play dates with them so that we could hang out with each other and say. So they were predispositioned to be friends. And Tahsin went to school with them, and he has become very close. I mean, the three of them are part of a much larger community of friends that have just been so tight. They would go to school together. They did Model United Nations together. They would go to cafes and talk about everything under the sun. They would come to my house every Saturday, ducking under the threshold of my door, because there's some of them when they were so tall, and cram themselves into Hisham's tiny room and just talk for hours. And they would just inspire each other and push each other through, each of them wanting to kind of live up to the intellectual, cerebral, ideals of the other. So they're a brotherhood of friendship, but also of kind of intellectual common ground. They just love knowledge, and that's what's brought them together and what's kept them together. And this obviously will keep them together even more. I think the time that they had in the ICU room together has been bonded them even more because they were able to keep each other's spirits up. They were each individually facing a terrible trauma, and for Hisham, definitely a devastated future. But the fact that they could be together and joke with each other and tease each other, I think helped them process some of that initial trauma to the point where they were able to stabilize themselves. So
right.
they're very lucky to have each other.
Tamara, I see you sort of nodding along with Elizabeth.
Absolutely. I was going to interject and say she means they're nerds.
Well,
Brotherhood of the nerds.
I can relate. I can relate.
He actually can. It is clear that they have a strong support system, between the three of them, but also the extended family. As you know, we've been talking a lot about a rise in anti-Semitism here, a rise in Islamophobia here in this country, and I'm wondering, I'm sure this is the last thing you would have expected for your sons. Is there anything that you would want to say to U.S. lawmakers about some of the rhetoric that we've heard, and the impact of words? We don't know, what's behind this action right now. It's being investigated. They're not calling it a hate crime, but it certainly could eventually become that.
Thank you so much for asking that question. The answer is that words absolutely matter. And as far as I'm concerned, it is those words, it is that rhetoric, it's the dehumanization of Palestinians that has led to this event. Because perpetrators like this defendant, Eaton, are emboldened because the dehumanization makes it very easy. And I have to say, if those three boys looked like him, were not dressed the way that they were not speaking Arabic, I honestly do not think that our children would be in the situation that they're in now. I don't think that would have happened. I don't think he would have been emboldened to shoot at someone that looks like him, would he? So yes, absolutely, the rhetoric matters. We are mourning and grieving the loss of Palestinians before this. So to have this happen to our children here in the United States, where we sent them to study, thinking that they're safe, is, it's just absolute horror for us. It's every mother's nightmare that has just come true. And to understand and know that it's because of who they are is just absolutely soul-destroying for us. I'm American. My son is American. We are U.S. citizens. I was born and raised here. No one deserves this. No one deserves this. And we will make sure that that man is prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Elizabeth?
I completely agree with Tamara. I mean, I have been watching from afar the American media and the American leadership as they comment and strategize and talk about what's happening in Palestine. And proportionally, I think the death toll of Palestinians in Gaza, if it were in America, would be 3 million. 1 in 200 children in Gaza have been killed. And we have gone through this period over the last few weeks, 7 weeks, of thinking, but surely human life is more valuable than geopolitical agendas. And there will be a moment where it'll trump the political considerations. I mean, my friends in Gaza were desperate to think, they won't continue bombing us, will they? Really, they can't. And yet in America, we see politicians and former staffers of the White House calling for a complete eradication of those in Gaza. And then you have people who are just complicit by not even talking about it. I mean, I applaud Senator Welch and Representative Balint for calling for a ceasefire. Senator Welch recently called for an unconditional ceasefire. I mean, I've worked in the Gaza Strip in terms of humanitarian and development issues, and I know that there's an irrevocable disaster unfolding in Gaza. I don't even know if Gaza will ever be able to be reconstructed in a way that will be livable. It was already nigh on unlivable before. And so when you have American politicians and American media saying that it should continue, we are not ready yet, and ignoring the life of Palestinians, it is very... it's very logical to think that that type of rhetoric would be applied in the U.S. and that Palestinians would be vilified, deserving of the violence, or not as important. And I think, this is something that a lot of minorities in America have experienced, being the othered, being the vilified. And I think words are so incredibly powerful. And I think the mainstream media and the leadership of the governments need to really think about their words, because there is power in words, and they need to be accountable for what the consequence of those words, both here and around the world, and particularly in Palestine right now.
And certainly the hope is that this suspect will be held accountable and justice will prevail. Because as you say, Tamara, it is shocking for us here in the United States to see something like this happen to your sons. But the perhaps silver lining is that justice will be rendered. Thank you very, very much for sharing your thoughts, your feelings with us, Elizabeth Price. Your son is Hisham Awartani. I want to make sure I get his name right. Hisham Awartani. And Tamara, your son is Kinnan Abdalhamid. We're so happy that they're okay. And I'm very happy that we both are very happy that you will be reunited with your sons later today. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.